Welcome to WTEW Bible Studies. Today we're going to talk about the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls. There's so much confusion here. How do they line up? Well, they don't all line up with everybody's present theory. So if you watch my video, The Unseen Seven, and I ask that you spread that one around like no other, that's my passion. That's where there are 7 pictures of the same event, same time frame, and you'll never get the seals, trumpets, and bowls with any theories that are out there right now. You've got to look at a new thing, and I'm going to go over just the seals, trumpets, and bowls in this one, so that you can see how those line up. I'm going to stand up over here next to my sticky notes. If you want to get things in line, sticky notes are a good way to go sometimes. You start moving things around until they work, and that helped a lot with being able to present this. So, Matthew 24:8, we hear about birth pangs. Those are the first 4 seals, where we've got the conqueror, we've got wars, famines, pestilences. Those are the first 4 horsemen. Well, if you say that first one's the Antichrist, and that's you're not going to move off of that, you're going to miss. So these are birth pangs. They happen over and over and over again. So we had way back in the days of things like King Nebuchadnezzar, we had Antichrist types that were able to take over the whole world. They were able to put to death whomever they will. But when we see in the Christian age, when the Holy Spirit came, seal 5, we saw the Christians put an end to the time of world domination. And they have limited death now, according to that 4th seal, to 1/4 of the earth. So for 600 years before that, these antichrists had power over the whole world. And by antichrist, I mean people like King Nebuchadnezzar. He was a type of antichrist. There's going to be 2 more types of those antichrists that come. But right now, they're not here. People like the Hitlers of the world, they can only take over 1/4 of the earth. They can't take over the whole earth. And it's been that way for 2,000 years. No matter how many Antichrist types spring up, no matter how many wars, no matter how many pestilences, no matter how many quarters of the earth that they take over, there's not going to be a new world ruler just yet. Then we're going to have a Prince of Rome come up. He's going to be a world ruler. And he's going to be able to take over the earth. And there's going to be war and famine and pestilence. And that whole 1/4 of the earth dying, that limit, that's going to be gone. And there's going to be somebody else comes up. And that's going to be the king of the north, Seleucia. And he's going to take over from the king of Rome. And he also will have no limits put on him. There's still going to be that Antichrist. And he's going to be the real final Antichrist that everybody's afraid of is going to come. And he's going to be the one in charge for those last 3.5 years of the period of the Great Tribulation. And during that time, there's going to be wars, famine, pestilence, and there will be no death limit. That 1/4 of the world death limit, that's going to be gone. And that's going to be that way throughout the time. And even when Jesus comes, and Jesus is now the world ruler, there's going to be wars, famine, pestilence that are going to come in a single day. And so those birth pangs, they last throughout to the coming of Jesus. So we had the birth pangs. 1 through 4, we've got an Antichrist type character as a conqueror. He's a beast. Then we've got war, famine, pestilence. And we've got Christian martyrs. That's your first 5. Then on the time of the 6th seal, that's a time immediately after the Great Tribulation. So there's different signs of the sun, moon, and stars. We see the throne of God come. We see Jesus come. That's the end of the story. They come. They judge the earth. So we don't see the good judgment there, but we see the bad judgment. Those people are wiped out that came to fight against Jesus. And that's only 6 seals, but we came to the end of the story. So there's a whole nother story picks up right at Revelation 8, chapter 6. So this part of the story, that like I said, it's a new story. But when we get to the 7th seal, that pictures right at the time that the 6th seal starts. So the 6th seal and the 7th seal begin at the same time. They will last for 75 days until all God's wrath has been poured out. And when we see in Revelation 8:5, we see the thunders, lightnings, and voices, and an earthquake. That's a picture of the throne of God that we had. We had the throne of God pictured in the 6th seal. That's symbolically the throne of God pictured in the 7th seal. So both of those stories, the 6th seal and the 7th seal, cover the same period of time. So if you want to try and spread those out and put them in different places, that doesn't work. Everybody wants to say the 7th seal actually follows the 6th seal. Now, everything from the end of chapter 6, so the beginning of chapter 7 through 8:5. That's a story all on its own. It stands alone. It doesn't mix with the trumpets. It doesn't mix with the seventh seal, other than that the seventh seal is another picture of the same time as the sixth seal. So I hope that brought more clarity than confusion, but they overlap. The sixth seal and seventh seal happen at the same time. That's the moral of this story for the seals. Now what about the trumpets? Well, we got the trumpets. Trumpet 1, I believe that's a picture of World War II. So they're happening during these birth pang periods. So that's part of the whole wars. We've got defeat of Hitler, Germany, World War, that's trumpet number 2. So all the famine and pestilence that came out of those wars, that's all part of the birth pang. And again, these birth pangs get repeated over and over. So the trumpets fall in one part of those birth pangs, but those birth pangs have been going on for 2,000 years now. And if you want to say so, they 600 years before that, you had the Antichrist types. And then another 7 years after these birth pangs, you're going to have more Antichrist types come before you actually get the Christ that comes. And when Christ comes, he's not going to stop the war. He's not going to stop the famine and pestilence. They're just going to come all in a big old hurry. So those birth pangs last throughout. The conqueror, the famine, the war, the pestilence, those last throughout. These trumpets, they're one-time events. So, well, World War II, it lasted a few years. But the defeat of Hitler, that was kind of quick. Then trumpet 3, we've got, what is wormwood? Well, that is translated actually Chernobyl. So I believe when the Chernobyl explosion happened, that was a picture of the third trumpet. And the radioactive cloud that followed, that poisoned a third of the earth, that was trumpet 4. So those already happened. 4 trumpets already come and gone. The 5th trumpet, the locust, that has not come up yet. But again, that's going to be a limited time, maybe 5 months. And I believe that's going to come when we see the Prince of Rome and a covenant in Daniel's 70th week start, when 10 nations join together with Jerusalem and form their own big power, whatever. They'll be the new power on the block. And so we'll have 5 months of locusts, and that has not come. Then we'll have the 200 million cavalry. Now that is controlled by the army of the Antichrist. So we'll have a Roman Antichrist that'll rule, and they'll think there's peace for 3.5 years under the first half of Daniel's 70th week. Then when we get towards the middle, that 200 million cavalry from the Euphrates River is going to come down. So they're going to come down through Iraq and Syria to Jerusalem. When they hit Jerusalem, they're going to take away the twice daily sacrifice and set up an abomination of desolation. That is the midpoint of that 70th week. They got 3.5 years of a period of time called the Great Tribulation. And that will be the end of the punishment on Jerusalem. The end of that time, God's going to reign. That's when the bowls of wrath are going to start. Oh, excuse me, I didn't get through the trumpets yet. Let me get to trumpet 7. That's when God's wrath is going to be poured out. God says, hey, when trumpet, then that begins to blow, God's in charge. He'll lock Satan in his pit. God's in charge. Daniel's 70th week has ended. Jesus has not yet come. So we've got a God to pour out his wrath first. There's like 75 days of God's wrath, but the throne of God and Jesus will come right near the end of that wrath. What day that is, I don't know. Nobody knows. But from looking at all these, we know that it doesn't come during these other periods. It comes during the 6th seal. It comes during the 7th seal. Comes during the 7th trumpet. Those all happen at the same time. Now we got about the bowls of wrath. Are those spread out throughout different things? No, those come after the period of Great Tribulation has ended. Those come after Daniel's 70th week have ended. The Great Tribulation is done. Satan is done. Now God is going to judge those that killed his people. So all 7 bowls of wrath fit at the same time as the 6th seal, the 7th seal, and the 7th trumpet. So if you want to line those up together, that's the overlap right there. So if you do that, that will bring clarity to everything else. You might have to change your theory because those theories that you had, they're not going to fit with this. But the same events, if you look at those events, they're happening over and over and over and over so that you won't miss them. This is not my story. This is God's story. These are God's witnesses. You just have to listen to God.